Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I am your host, Bloody Bill Vox. That's me, that's right. Welcome into another show. It is Friday as I record this show. We are 24 hours removed from a wave of WWE releases. As I record, as you listen, as the show drops on a Monday, we're a few days removed from it, so maybe there were a few more releases over the weekend after the show is recorded, but there was still a hefty list of releases yesterday. Looking at the overall total, it seems like we had 20 talents cut yesterday. From the main roster, we had Aaliyah, Shelton Benjamin, Rick Boogs, Dana Brooke, Elias, Mace, Macy. I can't remember how they said it when it was in Maximum Male Models. Emma, Mansoor, Riddick, Moss, Shanky, Top Dollar, and Dolph Ziggler. From NXT, we had Dabo Kato, the Commander Aziz or Azir or whatever his name was there. Apollo Crews is heavy for a while. Quincy Elliott, Eichmann Jiro, and Yulisa Leone. And then some PC talents that were cut. Brooklyn Barlow, Alexis Gray, Daniel MacArthur, and Kevin Ventura Cortez. Not familiar with any of those names, so basically the only thing I can say about those is I hope that none of them give up on their craft. I hope they all go to a different school or whatever they want to do. Like, if they were in WWE, there must be something about them that WWE liked. So hopefully nobody gives up on that. In the NXT pool, Commander Aziz, I'm sorry to butcher whatever his names were, Dabakato or Dabakento or Kendo Stick. I don't know. He was a big dude, real imposing, seemed like he could be a really good heavy for somebody. But in terms of being an individual character, I think his best chance at that was when they were doing the Raw Underground segments, when he emerged in that scene there. But otherwise, I don't think he was going to go too far on his own, especially once the Apollo Crews stuff ended. And they never really did too much to follow up on it, at least not that I remember anyway. So if they did, it wasn't overly memorable. Quincy Elliott seemed like they had a lot of potential when they first came on the scene. The Super Diva was the whole gimmick there. Looking like a modern-day King Mabel with some of the attires. But then, if I recall, there was something with burner accounts and homophobic comments, which is kind of ironic given the character he was playing. And then other dirt sheet reports have said that otherwise he was a bit of a challenge backstage. And even as he announced his release from WWE, he actually said, "Let the celebration begin." So apparently Quincy wasn't all too happy in NXT. So good riddance, I guess. Eichmann Jiro, I'm probably not saying his name right, seemed like he had some potential. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Yoshi Tatsu in a way, but given Yoshi's history in WWE, that could have been a real damning thing to be compared to him. I mean, Yoshi has had success outside of WWE, but in terms of in WWE, his run was kind of forgettable. Had some good matches, but otherwise. Yulisa Leone, or I'm going to say that's probably how we say it. Maybe, I don't know. Not familiar with her work at all. I did catch that there was a lot of people upset about her release, so maybe I just missed her in some of her work. Getting to the main roster, I talked about a lot of these on my Twitter account. If you want to follow me on Twitter or anywhere on social media, just plug in @BloodyBillVox. If I'm there, I'm there. A lot of these I talked about on my Twitter account, so some of this may sound like rehashes if you follow me there, but when it comes to the release of Aaliyah, I know she wasn't necessarily a 5-star wrestler and that sort of thing, and but I was, as a fan, invested in her journey because she was in the NXT Breaking Ground series, and it was through that documentary that we got to see what kind of work ethic she really had and what passion she did have for it. to try and become a bigger, better, badder version of herself. So I got invested in her journey. So seeing her get released was a sad one. She never really got a ton of opportunity. She is a former WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. That was pointed out yesterday. I had largely forgot. In fact, it was pointed out in that was the last time she wrestled on the main roster, was when they lost the tag team titles, which was her and Raquel Rodriguez. So definitely sad to see her journey end, just because the work ethic was there, the drive was there. Obviously, there wasn't a place for her in WWE at the end of the day, but I'm not going to pretend to be like an Aaliyah super fan, but I was definitely invested in that in the work. Shelton Benjamin was next to go. That's a big shame. Like, I don't know how you don't keep that guy around and keep him on your roster to help working with the younger talent, and even maybe trying to get him to transition into a PC job when his in-ring days are done. I'm not sure why we would let a Shelton Benjamin go. That just seems like a valuable tool to have on your roster. And if you're not going to use him in the ring, surely there are other ways to put him to good use, whether it's producing or training or whatever. So, Shelton, in my experience, has never been a strong promo. Maybe that's what held him back in WWE, but the dude can go. Give him a mouthpiece and he's off to the races. So that's a shame. Rick Boogs got released. I liked Rick Boogs. I don't think he was ever really going to be anything above mid-card, but he could have been a hype man for his entire career, and that shtick would have been over. The rock and roll hype man, it worked with Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it still would have worked with somebody else this time around. One of the other releases was Elias. Like, how the hell did Rick Boogs and Elias not form a musical tag team and enter the tag team division of either NXT or WWE to have themselves a run? That's a missed pairing right there, because Elias was also let go. Elias had a really great character that I don't think was supposed to do anything more than fill time on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown or whatever show he was on, and it caught on organically. The interview segment, or the in-ring segment he did with Kevin Owens in Seattle, is still looked back on as one of the loudest and rowdiest segments in Monday Night Raw history. The Drifter character was great, and then for some reason they stripped it away from him and gave him that lame-ass twin brother stuff, or younger brother gimmick, and that essentially murdered him. Elias was never the same. Even when they brought the Elias character back, it wasn't the same after that. So, at the end of the day, missed opportunities big time there. Dana Brooke was also on the release list. That's another one I got invested in through the Breaking Ground series, because she was also featured. It's no secret Dana Brooke has had a series of blunders in her WWE career, but that's a woman that never gave up on herself, never gave up on trying to get better, trying to improve. She got a lot of heat from wrestling fans all over for no good reason. Like, they would, if you don't like Dana Brooke, that's fine, but the stuff that people would say about her was just obnoxious. But wrestling fans can be very obnoxious. And even some of the discourse over these releases are once again proving that, wrestling fans, among many other segments, but for my experience, wrestling fans have some of the ugliest people lurking in the shadows, claiming to be fans, but really they're out to witness the downfall of people. Wrestling fans are kind of like that anyway. They'll support somebody up to the success, and then once they're successful, fuck them. We've seen that happen a number of times in wrestling history, where somebody was a favorite of the crowd, and then once they became popular, they would lose that momentum. Once they became successful, they would lose that momentum. Yeah. But Dana Brooke, she had a career as a fitness model before WWE. Maybe she goes back to that. I mean, I'll say that I noticed in recent years it's weird to say it like this, but she let her body become a little softer, more for what seemed like a wrestling body versus a bodybuilding body. And I mean, when she first came in, she had the bodybuilding body, and I've seen the photos, so she probably knows how to get right back to being that level of jacked if she wants to go into fitness modeling again, or the competitions even. But at the same time, I would kind of hope that Dana Brooke keeps getting out there and does some indie dates and maybe go catch on with Impact. Smaller crowds, not as frequent of a schedule, allows more time for training, that sort of stuff. I don't know. But I hope her road doesn't come to an end. Mace and Mansoor, I'm going to cover them together because they are the epitome of turning chicken shit into chicken salad. And apparently they had a very wild Twitch stream where they told some tall tales on the night of their release. There was apparently all sorts of crazy stories. I didn't really catch up on them, so I'm not going to try to remember the bits and pieces that I caught out there. But those two guys, epitome of turning chicken shit into chicken salad with the Maximum Male Models gimmick, and that whole deal got cut out from underneath them when they took Maxine away and brought her over to the Alpha Academy. And that's been a great pairing, but I mean, essentially, Otis and Maxine are like Otis and Mandy Rose 2.0. And Maximum Male Models seemingly never recovered from losing Maxine as their manager, obviously, because now they are gone from WWE. But, kudos to those guys because, that gimmick was never gonna be over from the onset, but it got over. Not super over. It's not like it was a merch mover or ratings bumper, but people talked about it, and I think that's very key that people talked about it. Let's see, Emma. Emma was a sad one. Emma and Riddick Moss, both the engaged couple there, both got released. So sad to see that household both get released. But I think Emma's has got to be one of the saddest of the bunch, maybe if not the saddest release of the bunch, because I think it was about 40 minutes prior to her posting about her release, she posted about Elimination Chamber being in Perth, Australia. It's a dream. And then 40 minutes later, she posts, "Never mind, I've just been released." I don't know why WWE bothered re-signing Emma to begin with. And I like Emma. I love the Emma Lucian stuff. I like the It's About Me era. That theme she used was a banger. But when they brought her back basically as an enhancement talent to face Ronda Rousey in an open challenge and they jobbed her out in like 3 minutes, you knew her run was doomed. It's like, why did we re-sign Emma? They never gave Emma a chance in this latest run. So, I mean, maybe good for her on this that she is, she's been let go. She's got her non-compete, so I think she would get paid for those 90 days, and then she can go back out and be Tenille Dashwood again and hopefully see some of that success she was having before she came back to WWE. Is she basically abandoned some, mild success on the independent scene and with Impact to go back to WWE and basically just got left in catering for the entirety of the run. Same thing with Riddick Moss once he was done being Madcap Moss. I don't know why they felt the need to end the Madcap part of the gimmick. Like, if they needed to split him from Baron Corbin, that's fine, but Madcap was over. Madcap was a goof around, have a good time type fun guy. He could have, been something on his own with that gimmick. He could have paired up with somebody else with that gimmick. And then they just made him Create a Wrestler 14. Generic as all hell. The music was generic as all hell. They doomed the man when they took the gimmick away. And now, unfortunately for him, he is also sidelined. If I recall, he was a former football player, though. So he's probably going to be okay. I think like Baron Corbin, he's got that NFL money. So he's not totally concerned about wrestling money. But, whatever. I'm not going to speculate about the guy's finances too much. I'm not his accountant. But the Madcap gimmick, if he still had it, I don't know if he would have been on that list. Shanky also got released. He was one of Jinder Mahal's seconds for a little while there, or still was. I'm not sure. I just remember his thing was dancing for a little while, and it was pretty over. But that was about the extent of it. So hopefully he is able to continue his work wherever he wants to continue that work and catch on somewhere else. if that's what he chooses to do. Like, I don't know a lot about Shanky, so, just say that I remember the dancing was over, and I wish him the best. Top Dollar from Hit Row got released. I'm surprised that the other two didn't get released with them. Ashanti the Adonis and the lovely, lovely B-Fab. I almost wrote yesterday, protect B-Fab at all costs, but I thought it would be disrespectful to the people that were going to be released. So I just didn't want to follow up Top Dollar's release by saying protect B-Fab at all costs. I just like B-Fab a lot. She's not that good in the ring, but whoo boy. Yeah. That's what I'll say. Oh boy, yeah. You can infer. The most shocking, I think, of all the releases yesterday, but not shocking at the same time, Dolph Ziggler's near 20-year career with WWE comes to an end. The former World Heavyweight Champion released as part of that wave on Thursday, September the 21st. I thought Ziggler was going to be a lifer with the company. I thought for sure that he was going to retire with WWE, probably become a producer, backstage agent, whatever they call him, or maybe a PC trainer, do some stuff on the side. I kind of assumed there would never be an era where there was Dolph Ziggler not in the WWE. So I assume and hope that he'll continue working, and my guess is that he'll start working under his real name, Nick Nemeth, and go out there and do the deal. Well, it would be really funny because whenever he first came around and he's doing the whole "Hi, I'm Dolph Ziggler," it reminded me of Dirk Diggler from the movie Boogie Nights. So I don't know why I wouldn't really say this, but just for shits and giggles, it'd be funny if he went off and optioned that name, got the rights to it from, whatever movie studio holds the rights to Boogie Nights, and he started working as Dirk Diggler. Because, it would be based on a movie character, and then WWE couldn't do anything about it, and it's pretty close to Dolph Ziggler. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Just a wild train of thought. But Dolph, like I said, one of the greatest workers. I said it on Twitter. The man essentially saved Goldberg's legacy because he was fed to Goldberg after that atrocious Undertaker-Goldberg match that should have been decent. They should have been able to knock that one out of the park easy. Punch, 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 kick, 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 spear, kick out, jackhammer, kick out, chokeslam, tombstone, done. So easy, but Goldberg likes headbutting fucking doors. But anyway, Ziggler saved Goldberg's legacy, in my opinion, because then at that point in time, if Goldberg never wrestled again, the last match he had was a very impressive squash with Dolph Ziggler at a SummerSlam. And that showed how much WWE trusted Dolph. Basically, they trusted Dolph Ziggler to salvage a legacy. I don't know if it gets any higher of a mark than that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's on the chopping block. And, with some of these, I wouldn't be surprised if their contracts were just coming up anyway and they knew that they weren't going to use them. So that's why they decided to cut them early and save the few bucks. But same breath, even though they're not going to be receiving this money until 2024, the fact that WWE announced a $1.4 billion TV deal with USA and also announced that Elimination Chamber is going to be in Perth, Australia, which means Perth paid some money, or is going to pay some money. They announced both of these two giant revenue streams and then fire 20 talents. So even if the contract thing was a reason, WWE always WWEs. That's just what they do. WWE always WWEs. Yeah. I lost my train of thought because it blows my mind that they have this kind of timing. Like, how can you announce billions of dollars in sales in revenue coming to you, and then follow it up by firing a bunch of people right after they just fired a bunch of people. Like, and I know it's not just WWE at this point; it's TKO, Endeavor, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But you know, still horse crap, man. Still total horse crap. But on that note, I think it's a good place to wrap up current events. I just cut my live cable package with Hulu, so I'm not watching anything now. WWE's content agreement with Hulu is ending, so even those condensed 90-minute versions of shows aren't going to be available to me. AEW stuff isn't available without the live package. So probably be sticking more to like stories versus event reviews, except for when, you know, there's pay-per-views and premium live events. AEW's got one coming up in like 8 days as I record this one, and I don't think I'll be ordering it because just I don't even know what's going on with it. But yeah. So on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the topic of discussion for this week's show. And it's a first. I mean, we're only 12 episodes in, but I didn't think I'd ever do a mod on this show as a game title, but here we are. Let's talk about it. WWF Legends Challenge 64. Let's talk about it. But let's also talk about the fact that this is a take-two recording. And the reason why it's a take-two recording is A, the original recording had the ending snipped off, so the show ended super abruptly. And B, I wasn't in the greatest of moods on the day that I recorded, and it didn't come through when I was talking about talent releases. But when I got to talking about the game, I felt like because of certain subject matters that was included in my discussion, that my mood changed, and ultimately I wasn't very impressed with what I put out for recording. So I decided, with less than 12 hours to go before the premiere, that I would pull down what was originally scheduled to be there, which I felt like was kind of downer content. Pulled it down, we're re-recording. So this is take two on my review and look back at WWF Legends Challenge 64, coming off the heels today of the 5th in an 8-match Royal Rumble series that I've been running on Twitch. In fact, as this episode drops, Royal Rumble match 6 will take place tonight, September 25th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, over on Twitch at Bloody Bill Vox, or twitch.tv/Bloody Bill Vox. Match 7 will take place Tuesday at 6:30, and match 8 will take place Thursday at 6:30. And then date to be determined coming up the following weekend, which will either be September 30th or October 1st. We'll be running the King of the Ring tournament that all of these Rumble matches are qualifying the winners for. All sorts of big fun being run with WWF Legends Challenge 64. And I felt like today was a great day to kind of take a take two, because the game deserved a lot better, because I had a point I was trying to make, but because I wasn't in the greatest of moods on the day that I did my recording, I wasn't happy with it. And so nobody's ever going to hear that version of it. You're going to hear this version, and this is a version that, as I'm sitting here right now, I can already tell you I'm going to be happy with, because I'm in a much better mood and a better headspace than I was on the day that I did the recording. Originally talking about this game that you're seeing on your screen right now, going through the menus, WWF Legends Challenge 64. So a quick backstory on what this game is before I read you the write-up right off of their website, because this is not a situation where we're using SmackDown Hotel, because this is a WWF No Mercy mod. If you're familiar with that scene, you know exactly what a mod means, or especially a No Mercy mod. But the team behind this game took No Mercy, broke down all the coding and all the different image textures and everything else that goes into producing this kind of game. They looked at the game engine. They did everything from the ground up, as far as I understand it, and they basically created a game based on No Mercy that captures the WWF Golden Era. So this game runs like No Mercy and feels like No Mercy, but it looks like 1985 to 1993 WWF. If you want to know more about these guys, you can follow them on Twitter at WWF Legends 64. Their links will be in the description, both on Spotify and on YouTube. So you can go into the description of this file or this video, and you can click those links, and you can follow these guys. And I highly recommend it because it's a wonderful, wonderful project. I mean, you're already seeing it on the screen if you're watching here on YouTube, so you know what I'm talking about. But, so like I said, we're not using SmackDown Hotel for anything. I used the website for WWF Legends for the write-up, and obviously I used the game itself to get the match types and the roster and everything else. So I wanted to read the description word for word off of their website because I feel like not only through this game do you see the level of passion and dedication that went into it, but the write-up itself of the game, I think, tells the story of the people behind it and what their intentions were, and you're seeing what the output was on your screen right now. So this write-up comes directly from their website. Again, the link is in the descriptions of these files. But it comes right from the mouths of the creators, essentially, or the modifiers. So here it is right from their website. WWF Legends is a complete modification of the beloved Nintendo 64 video game WWF No Mercy, originally released in 2000, and widely regarded as one of, if not the best, professional wrestling simulation ever created. The AKI, man, I had a hard time the first time I did this. The AKI, now Sin Sophia development team, were able to take the colorful and unique world of professional wrestling and lovingly port it directly into their multiple titles for the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 throughout the late 90s, early 2000s, culminating in this game, the final release of its kind. Because of its reputation as the gold standard in pro wrestling gaming, and made stronger by the sudden stop in production, wrestling and video game fans alike have longed for more of the signature action and quirkiness AKI games provided. By that same token, the World Wrestling Federation, now WWE, was the king of the world of professional wrestling in the mid-'80s well into the '90s. Dubbed the Golden Era, the colorful characters, legendary performances, pop culture crossover success, and indelible childhood memories created in this time period has left a generation of fans clamoring for a way to relive the glory days of the WWF. Where's my mouse? I gotta scroll here. WWF Legends aims to fill both of these voids and appeal to multiple generations by updating and evolving the AKI game engine while capturing the essence of the World Wrestling Federation's golden age. The marriage of these two worlds almost serves as a spiritual successor to WWF WrestleFest. Suck it. Going out to Retromania Wrestling. That's me saying that, not them. The classic arcade title that fans of the era will certainly remember. This is all made possible through emulation. WWF Legends runs on Project 64, an emulator available for your PC. A variety of other tools help create the immersive experience, including custom music, match commentary, and more. The Legends team has been working towards its goals since 2006. Over a decade of texturing, brainstorming, and implementing the many changes that make WWF Legends feel like a whole new video game. One that is most certainly a labor of love for the dedicated team. One that is most certainly a labor of love for the dedicated team. The journey towards the ultimate WWF experience rages on as the team makes big plans to release the third major update, which has already happened, WWF Legends Challenge 64 in 2023. Please enjoy this trip back to a time when the WWF was, quote, what the world was watching, and larger-than-life heroes and villains captured the hearts and minds of people young and old. What a write-up that was. And I know I fumbled at a couple of spots. Reading under pressure, man, it gets me. But what a write-up. And it's funny that they mentioned WrestleFest as well, because I would be very easy to agree with that statement, because it takes a lot of the characters of that WrestleFest era and combines it with No Mercy and combines it with that golden era of WWF programming to create this beautiful masterpiece. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And if you've listened to past episodes of this podcast, you know that I have dreamed and wanted and waited for some sort of game that kind of accomplishes what Legends Challenge 64 accomplishes. That game that combines the 80s and the 90s, various characters, various venues, and we're about to go over the various characters, venues, match types, and all that sort of thing. And I'll go more into detail about how this game is such a dream and what it has meant to me in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the roster. Now, you'll see, and you may already be seeing, depending on where I'm at here with my audio versus the video, but you'll see that a lot of these characters and some of the bigger names have 18, 19, 20 different attires. Now, that is absolutely bonkers, considering this roster, I believe, if we count the regular roster, the managers, and the job guys, this roster is 51 deep. But let's go through the roster. Now, bearing in mind, a lot of these characters have a ton of attires to them, spanning different eras. Like I mentioned before, I believe the era that this game spans is 1985 to 1993. So that's a long era for some of these guys that are in the game. But let's take a look at the roster. We'll start with the wrestlers, then we'll go into the managers, and then we'll even mention the commentary players that I have heard so far, and I believe are the ones included in the game. But if I were to discover others, I guess I could just update it later. But first, the wrestlers. We got Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, the Macho Man Randy Savage, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, the Ultimate Warrior Jake the Snake Roberts, Rowdy Piper, Honky Tonk Man, The Undertaker, Mr. Perfect, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Rick Rude, Axe and Smash for Demolition. We also got Crush for Demolition. He's later in the list, but we'll announce him now as part of Demolition. Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, The Hart Foundation, Dusty Rhodes, Earthquake, King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd, The Big Boss Man, The Junkyard Dog, Razor Ramon, Bam Bam Bigelow, Kamala, Hercules, The Model Rick Martel, Virgil, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty to make up the Rockers, Zeus, the British Bulldog, the Warlord and the Barbarian to make up the Powers of Pain. Fun side note on those guys, they have their post-Powers of Pain gimmick attires in this game as well. King Haku, Outlaw Ron Bass, Erwin R. Shyster. That's our wrestler. Plus, there are 4 jobber characters. I can't remember all of their names off the top of my head, but I know we've got the Spectre and Bubba Tate, Larry Hargrove. Oh, come on. That leaves out 1. But anyway, that's 3 out of the 4. Not bad, for top of my head. Managers in the game who are also playable characters. You can wrestle with these bad boys. In fact, Bobby the Brain Heenan and Mr. Fuji have been very active competitors in the Royal Rumble matches I was talking about at the top of the show. But anyway, our managers. We already mentioned Bobby Heenan and Mr. Fuji. We've also got Jimmy Hart, Miss Elizabeth, Paul Bearer, Sensational Sherry, Kim Chi, Slick, and Brother Love. Then on commentary, what they've done for the commentary is they have extracted classic WWF commentary tracks from a variety of different events. Some of them I've been able to figure out what they are. Really just one. It's actually, no, 2. We got some, I believe it was WrestleMania 4 commentary, because Bob Uecker talks about having his option renewed. But it might have been WrestleMania 3 when that joke was made. I can't remember what 2 WrestleManias he was a part of. I think it was 3 and 4. But anyway, so there's that one, and then there's Royal Rumble commentary from 1990, because I remember the joke about Mickey and Minnie trying to get into the Orlando Arena, which is now the Amway Center, but making a joke about them trying to get in. I remember that joke. But anyway, the commentary team for Legends Challenge 64 is quite the eclectic group, a legendary group, if you will. We've got Vince McMahon, we've got Jesse the Body Ventura, Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Sean Mooney, Lord Alfred Hayes, and Tony Schiavone. That's a pretty solid list of various things that we've yanked. Then, the team has gone ahead and provided us with one hearty list of arenas. We've got WWF Live at Madison Square Garden. We've got the London Arena, which I looked up, and it played host to an event known as UK Rampage 89. There were other UK Rampage events. I don't know where they were held. I didn't bother looking that part up. But for the purposes of this game, it was UK Rampage 89. It was a live special that aired on Sky Sports, I believe. Moving along in our arenas, we've got the 1992 Royal Rumble, WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 5, the 1989 SummerSlam, the 1989 Survivor Series, Saturday night's main event, Superstars of Wrestling, and Wrestling Challenge. Me oh my, me oh my. Then for match types, we've got all sorts of fun stuff going on here. We got singles matches, tag team matches, triple threat matches, handicap matches, steel cage matches. A fun note of the steel cage is the team added a mechanism to where the door eventually removes and you can exit through the door instead of only being able to exit over the top of the steel cage. And of course, fear not, in case you're wondering, it's the big blue steel cage. We got special referee matches, ladder matches, Iron Man matches, 2 out of 3 fall matches. We even got a coffin match. Now, it's the commentary table skinned out to look like a coffin. It's not actually a coffin, but what a creative way and a creative idea to make a coffin match in a game where one didn't exist. I got to applaud the team behind this game for thinking of that, because I think that's pretty cool. For my experience playing it, basically, you do a bunch of moves near it, and eventually a knockout happens when the guy goes into the table. But when it happened, I lost. My guy went in, and then he just kind of stood up. Maybe that's not how it's supposed to happen. I've only played one, but I still think it's really fun that that's in there. We've also got the Royal Rumble match, as I was talking about at the top of the show. I've been doing those Rumble matches over on Twitch, where 8 of them, not 8 in a row, but 7 in a row, followed by an 8th, and then we do a King of the Ring tournament. But in the game, you can do anywhere from 4 to 40 entrants. I imagine the increments of 4 is because you can have 4 people in the ring at the time. So it's funny, you actually can't do a 30-man Royal Rumble in this in this game, but all the same, still a good time. You can also do a team Royal Rumble match, where up to 4 teams of 10. So I thought that was pretty cool. Also, you kind of almost do like stables, and I even speculated in the original recording that I might be able to utilize that kind of for a Survivor Series pay-per-view. The last of our game modes is King of the Ring, which has 3 different modes. We've got a singles King of the Ring, we've got a tag team King of the Ring, and then we've got a steel cage King of the Ring. So, I mean, this game is really full. It's got the roster, it's got the commentary, it's got the theme songs for everybody, it's got the venues, it's got the match types. You know, the 80s and the 90s didn't have a ton of stuff, so, you know, this is perfect for the gimmick matches of the time. You know, the ladder match premiered in 92, so, you know, barely made the cut, considering when the ladder match started in the WWF. You know, originally, before they acknowledged the ladder match that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels did in Portland, Maine, long before Shawn Michaels and Razor did one in WrestleMania, if they didn't acknowledge that, then I don't know, would the makers of this game have included a ladder match? Because a ladder match wasn't in WWF until 94, until years later when they acknowledged Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels did one at a non-televised event for a Coliseum home video about a year and a half prior. Interesting to think about. interesting to think about. So because this game is so recent, because it's a mod, the original release, there we go, of the game was August 31st of 2023. As I sit here on the second take of the game, it is September 24th. They put out an update on September 11th. So the most recent update to the game is 13 days old. So it's not like I got any sort of long-term childhood memories and stories that I can really tell. Doing this episode was a lot about giving more focus to this game. I've been doing wrestling challenge and primetime wrestling and Saturday night's main event, and I just discovered I can add superstars of wrestling to the fold because my texture issue got worked out. I just wanted to keep giving spotlight to this game because the biggest story that I can tell, and I'm going to be able to tell it with a much better outlook on things because I am in a better place today to tell a story of this note. So, I've been creating like crazy with this game, and the story that I can tell for this game doesn't involve remembering living rooms and sleepovers and snacks and drinks and things that my friend did to piss me off, or things that I wished for, or whatever. The story that I get to tell about this game that I hope the listener or the makers of this get to hear, because I don't know that even I was expecting this game to have the impact that it is having on me. So without going into tremendous detail, because I don't want to do that, it's a downer subject, but I have had a long history of mental health challenges. I got PTSD, I got the anxiety, depression, I've had a number of concussions that affects all of those things. I got memory loss. Some days are good, some days are bad. And recently, in recent months, there's been a lot of bad days, right? Lots of bad days. And so I felt like I was really going through the motions when it came to things I was enjoying and doing, like my podcast or YouTube postings, even playing my games, live streaming. Like, I wasn't losing joy in like my partner or my home. I still had a passion for those things, that I wanted to get things done for my home, and I wanted to make sure I went to work and all that stuff. But then once I was done my obligations, basically I was feeling nothing. Then this game comes along and it re-catches my attention. And when I say re-catches my attention, I mean that I remember WWF Legends 3 when it got posted before. I downloaded it, I put it on my computers, but I remember it doing, one of the tools was, because it was independent, it caused my computer to think essentially it was hacking itself, and I had to disable like firewalls and all this other stuff. It ended up just not being worth, as harsh as this is going to sound, not being worth the hassle to me in the end, because I didn't want to have to keep remembering, because of my memory issues, to turn something on and off all the time. So I just said, hey, this is really cool, but, let's uninstall it. So for the longest time in my life, and I've talked about it on this show before, on my live streams before, I have dreamed of a game that takes the late 80s, early 90s, gives us a bunch of characters now, because when I grew up, it was majority WWF. Like, I watched WCW, but it was majority WWF programming that I watched. So this dream was always WWF based, but I wanted classic venues, classic characters, classic commentary. I wanted superstars of wrestling. I wanted wrestling challenge. I wanted All-American wrestling. I wanted all the crazy TV properties. I wanted Rumble. I wanted the basics, In Your House, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, all that sort of stuff. I wanted a game that encapsulated the era of wrestling that, for me, is the greatest. Like, I can watch other eras and say that it's great, and maybe even in some respects, in terms of match quality, athleticism, whatever, maybe is better. But to me, the era that this game and the game that I dreamed of, the era that it covers, is the greatest. To me, that era is kind of like 88, 89 through about 96, 97. To me, that is the greatest period of wrestling. That is the period of wrestling that just provides me with the greatest of comforts. Like, if I'm feeling down, I can put it on, and it may not make me feel better, but it'll stop me from feeling worse in a way that's making you feel better. So I've always, always, always dreamed about a game like this coming along. And I'm having a lot of bad days coming up to this game re-catching my attention again. So I forget what day it was. I decided to download the game. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to give it a shot. I don't have a Nintendo 64 controller, but I'm sure I can figure it out. And I thought about it ahead of time. I had a PlayStation controller. And I was like, you know what? I can figure it out. I'll map it out with this. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. I'll admit I was very pessimistic about it. I kind of expected that it was going to be a similar experience to the first one, so I'm like, whatever, who cares? And again, it was just bad days, man. So when I plugged in that game, it lit me up in a way I hadn't been lit in a long time, and in turn, it has sparked me being more excited for other stuff again. Because, and I'll read my final review in just a moment here on the game itself, but not only did this game achieve a dream as close as I think I'll ever get in my lifetime, unless they do something else again in the future that covers a different era or something. I know other games get hacked and modded and whatnot. Maybe these guys will do something that even exceeds what they've done here in the future. No expectations of that, because this is amazing enough as it is, and they do it for zip. But this game just, I don't want it to sound like it was as bad as it will sound, but the game in a way was life-saving. Now, without getting too heavy into it, I'm more of an ideation guy. I'm not more of the planning type, if you catch my drift, without going deep into this, so we don't have to do too many trigger warnings here about, graphic mental health discussion. So the ideations were, they were kicking. They were kicking quite a bit. And thanks to this game, it got me thinking about entirely different things. And don't get me wrong, when I'm not working on stuff, things can still get bad, because up in the brain, up in that headspace is one of the worst places that you can be, left unattended. And it still happens. It happens to the best of us. I think we can all admit that sometimes we all get a little trapped up there, and we're all like, uh-oh, let's think about all the bad things that could maybe possibly be. Hope you enjoyed my singing there for a second. But this game coming along basically took 38-year-old me and made me feel like a child. And I think that's what my blues needed. I think we needed to feel a little bit of being a child. It didn't erase any of the problems that are causing me to have the bad days. Those problems are still there, and those problems are going to keep being there. They're being addressed, but they're still present. But this game is providing me such a freaking release. And the funny thing is I'm doing more simulating with it than I am actually playing it. But between the two, I'm jazzed up for everything. Like, as I sit here and record this episode, I already can't wait for tomorrow's Rumble match, or as this episode posts, tonight's Rumble match. And number 7 and number 8, I haven't done a live streaming run of multiple days in a row like this in a very long time. In fact, before the Royal Rumble streams, I had said, hey guys, I'm not really going to do a schedule of Saturdays and Sundays anymore because I don't want to. And the reality of the situation is it was a fallout of the bad days that were going on. This game has made me enjoy doing the live streaming stuff. Now, will I continue doing live streaming stuff on the regular after I finish this Royal Rumble and King of the Ring idea? I don't know. But the fact that this game rejuvenated my wanting to do, even the podcast was not suffering. Like, I wasn't suffering in production and talking, but getting prepped and starting to record and all that stuff was starting to become a challenge. I was debating about canceling Fantasy Warfare altogether, even though I had announced the new season coming. This game absolutely saved everything. So if the makers of this game were to ever listen to this particular podcast, I want to say thank you to you guys. You guys were life-changing in a way, life-saving in a way, because you took somebody that was having a lot of bad days, a lot of bad days, and kind of just going through the motions when it came to the stuff that I was doing for my enjoyment, creating the content for Fantasy Warfare, Dropkicks and Joysticks, this show, live streaming, everything that I was doing that I used to do for fun was starting to just kind of become the motions, and I didn't want to stop it because I didn't want to let people down that actually, for some strange reason, follow what I do. I don't know why people follow what I do. Maybe I should start believing that there's some entertainment value to what I do. But I was just going through the motions, so I wouldn't let those people down. And WWF Legends Challenge 64 coming into my life at the time that it did was perfect timing. I wasn't meant to play Legends 3, apparently, right? Maybe it just wasn't. I wasn't meant to experience the joy of whatever that was, and I bet that was great because from what I remember, it was cool. But maybe it wasn't meant to be at that time, and now I got to experience it, and that's why if you follow me on social media, you see me harping about this game a whole bunch. You see me harping about it on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and I'm not going to stop harping about it because this game is a dream come true. Not only for the mental health parts for me on the personal level, that it helped address and reignite some flames that needed flames to be ignited. Not only because of that, but because this is a dream game. So I'm gonna get into my final review of the game, so that way we can start wrapping things up here. Because between the WWF releases discussion that kicked off this episode and here, we're starting to get between the 50 and 60 minute mark, and I like to keep these episodes between 45 and 60 minutes, so that way I don't take up too much of your time. So let's get into my final review, and I like to write these ahead of time so I don't get too jumbled when I'm sharing them. But at the same time, we saw what happened when I read their write-up of the game. I still fumbled and bumbled a little bit, so let's see how we do. My final review of WWF Legends Challenge 64. This game comes as close to achieving my dream game as I think any game will ever come outside of WWE 2K14's 30 Years of WrestleMania mode and the previous 2004 game, Showdown Legends of Wrestling. And as a side note that I didn't include originally, when I say outside of those two games, I mean this game achieves it in a way that those two games tried to achieve it. Like, 30 Years of WrestleMania has 30 different WrestleMania venues and such a rich roster, but it does not cover the TVs. It doesn't cover the other pay-per-views. It doesn't cover everything that I would want it to cover. Showdown Legends of Wrestling has none of the venues that I want, but it has a huge roster. It has semi-decent gameplay, and they went out of their way to license the actual arenas. Like, they used Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden, Wembley Stadium, Tokyo Dome. It wasn't looks like. They got the permission from all these venues to use those names, something that I don't think any licensed mainstream wrestling game has done before, to my knowledge. But this game here, in its creation state for what it is, because it's not a WWE produced title, this is an independently put together project. This nails it. Like, those two were my benchmarks prior. Those were my two tangible things that I could pick up and play that were as close to that dream game as I could get. And then WWF Legends Challenge 64 came along. So that's what I meant by that line. I didn't include that in the write-up, and I wanted to address that because it almost sounds like I'm saying the other two did it better. So I don't know. I felt like I needed to clarify that. So let's get back into reading the review. The two-person team behind this mod put in so much time to redo all the texture files, music, sounds, and more to bring one of the best pro wrestling game modifications and even games in the history of wrestling game mods. I've seen these wrestling game mods going all the way back to like 2005 with the Ring of Honor mod. That is a side note. I remember people had to install in like 8 or 9 different parts. It seemed like the biggest pain in the ass ever. And that mod actually is part of the reason I never really messed around with mods until this game. And I've seen some others that apparently are out there, but WWF Legends is the only one that has ever showed up for me. I kind of see little bits and pieces of this WCW one that I might want to try out, but I don't even know if it's available. Anyway, back to the reading. This game will experience its bugs, but that is to be expected because it's a mod. So, every once in a while, things are going to get a little wonky, but the team behind this game have provided a number of great help files to help address some of the issues that may arise while you play this game, and the team is quite responsive on social media to questions that are asked of them in a respectful manner. In other words, don't be a dick if you decide to reach out to these folks, because they didn't have to do this. They don't have to answer your damn questions. So just be nice about it. If I recall, somebody from the team actually had to remind people of that. So I'm saying it in a less than PR way. Don't be a dick. If you got a question about the game, ask these guys nicely, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to try and help you out. But, at the end of the day, it's either going to run or it's not. This version is that really like pick up, plug and play type of deal that if you can't get it running, it's got to be your computer or it's got to be end user at this point. Back to the review itself. My review there. I keep going off the thing. But anyway, the team is very responsive. It's the last line of that paragraph that turned into a short novel. The perfect game is probably impossible to make. And because this game does suffer from a few instabilities on account of being a mod, it's impossible in my heart of hearts to give it a 10 out of 10. As much as I would love to, because it hits me right in all the nostalgia feels. Well, when reviewing a product, we gotta look at it for the full package, and there is some instabilities. The Royal Rumble matches have this weird freezing glitch that happen where a lot of the characters may just freeze like right in place for minutes at a time, and then something happens where they come back to life. So being totally objective, I'll still give it a 9 out of 10. Like, this game is beautiful, and if you've been watching it on the screen as you've been listening to this, you can see the beauty. You can see how it mimics WWF No Mercy, but it is immersed in the golden era of WWF. If you grew up in that era of wrestling of 85 to 93, this is the game for you. As I close our review, I write, if you've got a computer of any kind, you can probably run this. I ran it on a 4 gig Windows 8 AMD processor, all-in-one computer. This thing is slow and on the verge of death. And it still loaded it. Slow, but it still loaded it, and it still played. So, if you love the golden era of wrestling, and you loved the Nintendo 64 era of wrestling games from AKI and THQ, go into the description of this episode and click the frickin' link and go get it. And also go on to Amazon, type in USB Nintendo 64 controller. In fact, I will put the one that I ordered myself in the link of this episode, description of this episode. Get that controller, get this game, and get to the nostalgia, because honestly, you're missing out. This game helped my mental health, and it hit me right in the motherfucking nostalgia. And I had to say motherfucking nostalgia because it needed that flair, baby. So yeah, click those links and get playing, baby. Share your videos out on YouTube. They like the hashtag Challenge64. Challenge64, get your stuff out there. Let's share everybody's love of this game. I'm already connecting with more wrestling fans because of this game. I seem to be connecting with a few other challenge creators because of this game over on Twitter. So, get it together, friends. Let's play some Legends Challenge 64. But on that note, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I want to thank you for sitting by for another episode. Next week here, we're going to go ahead and talk about a game that I only just played for the first time earlier this year. First time in full earlier this year. I gave it like a 20-minute chance when it first came out. But for the first time, I played it in full. I loved it and I hated it. It is TNA Impact. We're going to talk about the PS3 version because that's the one that I played. Probably best version graphically, PS3, Xbox, that sort of thing. Not saying PS3 had better graphics. I'm saying the next-gen versions of the game. Like, I have the PS2 and the PS3 version. I would imagine the PS3 version is better. But anyway, we'll talk about TNA Impact next week right here on the show. Until next week, if you want to keep up with me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Ko-fi, Teespring. If you want to know if I'm there, you know the deal. Put in that bloody bill box and see if I'm there. But until next week, may you all have a wonderful week out there. Stay safe, stay happy, have fun, and I'll see you next week, right here on Dropkicks and Joysticks. And apparently I'm doing voices on the way out every time now. So weird.